Hello everybody, welcome back to another reading. Today we're taking a look at a case of William Bradford Bishop Jr., who is currently a fugitive of the murders of his family. He is a former United States Foreign Service officer who killed his wife, mother, and 3 sons in 1976. He was looking to get a promotion, but he was turned down for that. And this happened on March 1st of 1976. After he learned that he was not going to get the promotion, he told his secretary that he was feeling unwell, and he left his office, where he was actually seen by a coworker called Roy A. Harrell Jr., noting that Bishop was agitated. They believe he then drove to his bank, where he withdrew a bunch of money, then went to Montgomery Mall, where he got a ballpeen hammer and a gas can. He filled the gas can in his car, then drove to a hardware store where he purchased a shovel and a pitchfork. He then went home, arriving there between 7:30 and 8 p.m., where they believe he killed his wife first and then his mother when she returned from walking the dog. Finally, he took out his 3 sons, aged 5, 10, and 14, which were sleeping in an upstairs bedroom. He then allegedly drove with the bodies 275 miles to a densely wooded swamp about 5 miles south of Columbia, North Carolina, where on March 2nd he dug a shallow hole where he piled the bodies and set them ablaze with gasoline. He is then known to have purchased some tennis shoes at a sporting goods store in Jacksonville, North Carolina later that same day, and he also had the family dog with him, and was possibly accompanied by a woman described as dark-skinned. There's not much more information about that. And it wasn't until March 10th when a neighbor noted that they hadn't seen Bishop's family for some time, and then they decided to contact the police, who then of course made the discovery. On March 18th, his station wagon was found abandoned at an isolated campground in Elkmont, Tennessee, at the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, a few miles from the Appalachian Trail. The car contained dog biscuits, a bloody blanket, a shotgun, an axe, and a shaving kit with Bishop's medication. The trunk's spare tire well was full of blood, and a witness believed the car had been there since anywhere between March 5th and the 7th. Police theorized that Bishop joined the flow of hikers at the Appalachian Trail, and they attempted to follow his scent with bloodhounds, but without success. After that, there has been some possible sightings. In July 78, a Swedish woman who said she had collaborated with Bishop while on a business trip in Ethiopia reported she had spotted him twice in a public park in Stockholm during a span of 1 week. She stated that she was absolutely certain that the man was Bishop. She did not contact the police at the time because she had not yet realized he was wanted for murder in the U.S. On January of 1979, Bishop was reportedly seen by Roy Harrell, the State Department colleague who had last seen him before the murders, in a restroom in Sorrento, Italy. Then on September 19th of 1994, on a Basel train platform, a neighbor who had known Bishop and his family in Bethesda was on vacation and reported that she had seen Bishop from a few feet away. The neighbor described Bishop as well-groomed and said he was getting into a car. In 2020, authorities believe Bishop was living in Switzerland, Italy, or elsewhere in Europe, or possibly in California. Okay, those are some very slightly different locations. Authorities revealed in 2010 that before the murders, Bishop had been corresponding with federal prison inmate Albert Kenneth Bankston, though it is unknown why or how. Bishop evidently had instructed Bankston to send letters to his State Department office address, which Bankston mailed his final letter to 16 days after the murders without knowing that that had happened, or that Bishop was a fugitive unable to receive mail at his office. Bankston died in 1983, 10 years before law enforcement discovered his connection to Bishop, so they couldn't ask him any questions about what was going on there. In 2014, the body of an unidentified man resembling Bishop had been killed by a car while walking along an Alabama highway in 1981, was exhumed by the FBI. Bit of roundabout sentence there. A DNA test indicated the man was not Bishop. Also, in 2011, the FBI used fingerprints to determine that reports that Bishop had died in Hong Kong or France were false. In 2014, authorities stated that Bishop was probably living in plain sight in the US, avoiding discovery by avoiding arrest. Being arrested would enable law enforcement to run his fingerprints and catch him. And lastly, it says here that in March of 2021, a woman who had been adopted came forward claiming she had found out through a DNA testing service that Bishop was her biological father, and the FBI confirmed that she was indeed his biological daughter. But that is all we have as far as information that I'm seeing right here, at least relevant information. There's lots of stuff here about all the stuff that he used to do. But aside from all these possible sightings, we haven't actually caught the man yet. And he would currently be 87 if he were still out there. He used to be on the FBI list of the 10 most wanted fugitives, but he was actually removed from that in 2018 when they wanted to make space for somebody else. But they said that they were still actively pursuing him and that an Interpol red notice is still in effect, meaning that if you do see him, make sure to contact us, that type of thing. Other than that, we don't know anything, and nobody's ever been found. And that is why we're going to look at this case using the tarot. We're going to start off with the Urban Tarot deck, which is already on the table. And for any further questions, moving on to the Vice Versa deck, which is this one. Now, as per usual, I'm just going to start shuffling the deck. As soon as I have a better table full of cards, we're going to stop and take a look. So without much further ado, let's get started. Alright, so we're starting off over here in the top left with the card that's called the Universe. I believe it is the World though, and it always gives me very strong Fool vibes by the way that they're just kind of stepping off into the void, trusting that there will be something for them to step on. But it is indeed the World. So I think that this also makes it a bit of a combination of the two. Like on the one hand, they're just out there. I think this is the part where they left their old life behind, so to speak, and instead struck out for themselves. And I feel like they didn't have much of a care in the world, at least outwardly perhaps, just doing their own thing. And there is some struggle going on here with this Five of Wands. It is called strife. Could be that there is some internal strife going on here, because I feel like we're starting off at the point after he's already disposed of the family and he's out there with the dog, like that type of situation. So there is a sense of freedom and going out into the world, the big bad world possibly, but also some struggle there, possibly with some more practical matters, or maybe internal strife with, well, we did just abandon the entire family, so there's definitely something going on there. Internally, I see that as well with this sword card. This is the Eight of Swords, which is normally like a mental entrapment. It could mean that they were actually feeling very much trapped and unwilling to let themselves go. I see this type of card in reverse often when somebody has a certain mindset that they could have walked away from, but they chose to hang on to for whatever reason because it benefited them at the moment. Then we have the Emperor here as well, and the combination of these two cards in particular makes me think that perhaps in the moment that he took those actions, he kind of felt like, well, I am the emperor, I am the one who is in control, ultimately the man of the house, whatever terms you want to attach to that. I brought you into this world, I can take you out, or you're all relying on me, and if I don't want to anymore, then that's going to be the end of that. That type of thing is what these two cards kind of feel like to me. Like he had this mindset of, okay, I determine what happens next, and whatever it is, you might not like it, but it's my choice. And that might have been the mental entrapment that he was also suffering from. Next card we have here is called the Prince of Swords, which is basically the Knight of Swords, and it's in reverse. Knight of Swords normally charges off, often shown with the wind blowing in her face, like they're almost flying on a Pegasus. This card is called the Hacker in this deck. I think this is also a mental hacking that he's doing. Like there's all sorts of mental gymnastics that you would have to do in order to make this seem okay in your mind, and it looks like he was definitely doing a lot of that, and possibly also doing a lot of mental gymnastics to keep people from being suspicious of them being out there by themselves with their dog in a trail where they probably weren't super familiar. At least that's where the car was found, so I imagine that he was also kind of there. And on the way there, encountering people who may have asked some questions like, oh, hey, how'd you get here? I don't know, where the family? He may have still been wearing a wedding ring, and maybe people have asked about that. Or just simply asked, hey, out there by yourself, what's up with that? And he may have come to come up with some type of answers in order to keep people from suspecting anything. Then we have here the Prince of Wands, which is the Knight of Wands. Now, the Knight of Wands is also fairly gung-ho, and I'm thinking that this may be somebody whom he is encountering, and this card is called the Journalist, and this may have been somebody whom is a little bit more suspicious of people just randomly showing up on the trail. I mean, the trail and other trails like it, and the area itself, Appalachia, is one of those places where you tend to expect all sorts of strange things to happen, all sorts of strange people to show up who just kind of want to disappear. I'm sure there are many other places in the United States where you could do that. Many mountainous areas have seen people come and go who wanted to live out in the woods, away from society. So maybe there was somebody there who kind of saw something about William and thought, what's going on with this person? There's something off about them, and just started asking lots of questions. And this person is represented by the Hierophant, so maybe somebody who's actually locally fairly well known, or at least knows the area and knows a liar when he sees one, perhaps, or knows somebody whom is not as well prepared as they are perhaps trying to come across. So they may have been answering some tough questions from this journalist over here. Then we have the Nine of Pentacles in reverse, and this card is normally called Gain, and normally a 9 card is a very individual card, like it's you at the end of the road, how are you doing? And in this case, they may have felt like they've lost everything. Maybe this is the first time after all that's been said and done that they actually felt the loss of the family. And then the next card we have here is the Aeon. I believe this is Judgment. And perhaps this also came with judging themselves after they had a moment to themselves, possibly to think things through. But on the very end here, we see the High Priestess, but the High Priestess is in reverse. So they're not really looking into things too deeply, or they're not able to see any deeper motivation or beyond what's right in front of them. Like, they're not digging too deeply into whatever was going on with their mind at that time, not trying to discover any secrets of the universe, just kind of like sticking to surface level stuff, the facts, objective truths, that sort of thing. So while we do see some type of sense of loss here and judgment, it could very easily have been a sense of loss as in maybe they lost a dog, and maybe they lost their way on the trail, and maybe they figure out that they weren't actually as well equipped to go out there as perhaps they thought they were, that type of thing, judging themselves harshly over that, being in this trouble and not thinking too much beyond that point with the High Priestess in reverse. So that's one thing. Now, this may seem like they went to that trail and they never actually left, but perhaps there was more to be heard from after that. Let's take a look what we can get from anything beyond this point. And of course, there's a card on the floor. All right, we have the Three of Swords, but we're looking at the other end. So we're looking at the back of the situation. It could be that they were actually pretending to have lost a bunch of people in another way. Like, they're pretending to be very sad. You can see it's a very rainy place there. They're kind of looking at this sword, almost like at shield rather, with the swords, but almost like they're pretending to be a grieving father, parent, son, whatever it is, and looking at a sad situation, and also kind of representing this sad situation as a reason why they're out there, possibly. Let's see what else. So they're basically lying, I think, to whomever it is that they come across. We already saw some of that in the first line, but it may have just intensified or found some type of way like a story may have formed that they decided to stick to, because it's best to always have the same story rather than coming up with something new each time, which also costs a lot of effort. And another card on the floor. 5 of Swords, and we're looking at the reverse version and the other side. Normally we would see somebody standing there victorious with a couple of people walking away. Here we see somebody walking away from a sword fight, and they don't even look like they lost, they just kind of gave up. Like, I'm getting the impression that I think William is the person holding the swords over there, and they're out there trying to fight people possibly, or trying to convince people of certain things, but he's finding that other people are just kind of like ignoring him in a way. Like, he's telling these stories over here and a lot of people just kind of ignore him because of it. Maybe he had a little bit too much drama in whatever story he was telling about himself, that people just kind of left him alone because of it. Like, there is, of course, this thing, normally when you ask somebody how they're doing, you expect them to say, oh, I'm good. And there are people who don't do that, and they actually go into how they're doing, and they might go into it to such a level of detail that you're like, okay, sorry I asked. Like, that type of thing might be going on, that he's like trying to spin such a narrative that people just stop asking questions to kind of leave him alone. But so far I'm not seeing anything about traveling or going other places, although we do have here the Ace of Swords in reverse. This may be a trail that they're picking, because we're looking at a mountainous region in the background with forests, and that might not have been the best trail that they could have chosen, but they're very convinced of themselves. The way that they're raising a sword and with the crown overhead kind of shows me like, okay, I'm the boss now and I'm going to do what I want, and this is the trail that we're going down. So he really picked a direction, which isn't to say that he stayed in Appalachia, but he could have just decided on a path to go down, which could of course have led just about anywhere. Okay. Right on the edge we have here the Four of Swords. Alright, we're looking at a new perspective. We have a lot of swords energy, and I think that also is to show that William was very much stuck in his head and not so much in his emotions. We have here, this looks like the King of Wands, I believe. Or no, is this the Emperor? Let me take a look. No, it's not. It's neither of those. It's actually the King of Pentacles, but we're looking at the other side. Okay, so they're looking at a new perspective that possibly will give them more fruitfulness. Maybe this new plan also involves just taking a setback, going for a break, laying low, which is usually the case with the Four of Swords as well. Maybe they're just like thinking of ways that they could lay low for a while in order to then get some type of gain out of it. Maybe some type of plan that may lead to some fruitfulness. You can definitely see some fruit in the background there. 2 different types of grapes, and I see also a watermelon and lots of flowers. So possibly looking at a good future. Also, there's a ox or something over there in the distance that they're eyeing. So they're looking for some type of gains in the future if they carry out this plan to take up a new perspective and to take a time out, possibly. Let's see what's next. Okay, the Hermits in reverse and the back. Okay, so we are definitely looking at a time where they didn't quite take very good physical care of themselves, because I'm looking at the Hermit's robe, and I don't know if you guys can see that, but he's got quite a few holes in there, like they're looking a little bit worse for wear. But I think that might also just be part of the show, or at least he's pretending that that's part of the show while he is trying to light his way to new places. A card flipped, but with this deck I can't tell what that is, so I can't take it. Oh. Okay, these guys, I guess. Alright. 3 of Pentacles in reverse. Somebody is working against them, and he might also be working against other people, because we're looking at one person when we're normally looking at 3. So maybe they are purposely working by themselves, not wanting to accept any type of help from other people. Then we have the Four of Pentacles. Okay, but we're looking at the back end, and also it's in reverse, and the Seven of Pentacles also in reverse. So not only are they trying to work to themselves, by themselves, for themselves, but they're also not doing it very well, because the balance that you would normally strike with a Four of Pentacles is definitely not being struck here. But they're also not really paying attention to that. They're just kind of ignoring all of their bad decisions, and then the chickens are coming home to roost over there with the Seven of Pentacles in reverse. And now they're finally taking a moment to take a look at what they've done and the setbacks that they've caused themselves with this Seven of Pentacles. And that's the first time that they actually see what the results of their actions are. Also noticing that there is a skull there at the base of this bush, tree, whatever you want to call it. So they're not even really looking at the tree, or at the skull I mean, but I'm thinking that it is a result of his previous actions, that skull right there, and they're only really looking at the other results, while meanwhile that is the cause of it. So then what's... Then we have the Page of Pentacles. All right, so now we're trying something new, and it may be quite spur of the moment that they're trying this new thing. So they're trying to make, I guess, some good out of a bad situation by just throwing everything on a new tack and trying to get things going that way. This one, oh, there's two of them. All right, then we have the Hermit again, but it's in reverse, and we have the Chariot. All right, so I'm guessing whatever it is that they were trying to do, again involved trying to conceal themselves, stay away from society as much as possible, but that also led to stagnation because the Chariot is in reverse. And I think there's also quite a bit of risk taking involved here, because the Chariot in this case has somebody riding a car, which is very bad. Shouldn't try that. Terrible idea. And the Hermit in this case also looks like they're addicted to something. So I'm thinking that whatever this new plan is that they had over here with the Page of Pentacles led to more isolation and some very risky behavior. I'm getting the impression that while they thought they were possibly well equipped to go up into the mountains and take care of themselves, they're actually deluding themselves at this point, because it's not really turning out to be the case. But I don't think they even want to see it that way. They're so set in their thoughts of, I'm just going to go out there and do things, that they're blind to all the issues that they've caused and are still causing, which we also saw here with the Seven of Pentacles, just kind of not wanting to admit defeat, but also having no choice but to see that things are definitely not going well. Okay, so what happens next though? Because this is like going from bad to worse. Whoops. Okay. There's a lot on the floor, and there's this one. Let's grab that one first. We have here the Nine of Cups upright. I think this is more of them trying to make things feel like it's okay. It did land on its side, which I tend to take as a bit of an ambiguous way to land. So I'm thinking that he is fooling himself into thinking that everything's fine, but of course it's not quite. But it's just to try and keep his emotions in check, I suppose, that he is now thinking that everything is good. Now let me get the cards from the floor. Okay, so one of them is the Tower in reverse. I'm getting the vibe that they're trying very hard to not admit defeat, just like I was saying earlier, just does not want to look at all the terrible things, that they've been doing. Oh, this came off the floor. All right, so we have here the Sun trying to be as bright and cheerful as possible. Meanwhile, we have again the Seven of Pentacles, which is called failure in this deck. So while they're pretending that everything's fine, but it's actually really, really bad, because again, we have the Seven of Pentacles, which is just pointing towards negative outcomes. You get what you sow. Basically, you reap what you sow, and in this case he didn't sow very good things, so that is what he's reaping. So don't know where he is at this point. Chariot kind of points towards not getting very far, so perhaps him showing up in Europe was not in the cards, possibly. I don't know. Let's see what happens next. Like, I'm seeing these cards and I'm thinking maybe they never actually made it out of there, and that wouldn't be super surprising. So far we've only really seen cards pointing towards him being very badly prepared. That one. Prince of Discs in reverse. This would be the Knight of Pentacles. And Knight of Pentacles normally very slow, steady, wins the race, very methodical, well thought out, but it is in reverse. This is called the Day Trader. Day traders tend to have a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of bravado, possibly. They tend to think very highly of themselves, which kind of just suits what we've seen so far. So I think he is still pretending that everything is fine. So how does this end, though? Because you can't keep doing this forever. Oh. Okay, the next card landed here. The Seven of Swords. This card is called Futility. Seven of Swords is like manipulation, could also be treachery, and I think it's in reverse, so possibly this manipulation is coming from within. So I'm thinking we're just going to see more of this deluding themselves, thinking that everything's fine. After a while, though, you can't keep that up because you're going to have some real-world consequences, but they're very good at just playing mind games with themselves, I think, at this point. Oop. That's a lot of cards. Alright, I think that I need them all. So I'm guessing these are going to be the final cards because it's quite a stack here. Anyway, let's take a look what we've got. We've got the Ten of Wands in reverse. Alright, so now you're kind of getting tired, or possibly trying to push off being tired, even though they are very much feeling like there is no end to this. So we're not doing too great there. Then we have the Queen of Pentacles over here, feeling possibly that they cannot continue to balance their resources the way that they have. Normally the Queen of Pentacles is very good at spending their resources wisely, and you can also see in the background that everything's fairly opulent. People are all well fed and happy, and there's all sorts of stuff surrounding them. Possibly they're also thinking about what they've lost with the family that they themselves disposed of, and this might now be coming to mind while they're also tired of all the stuff that they've been doing before. We have a new plan here, but it is the end of an old chapter, so maybe we have a completely new decision over here. Initially we were trying to make things work out there, but now we have a new plan that ends a chapter, so maybe we're now also looking at some way to change things up permanently with this Death card. We have the Justice card next, though. But the interesting thing about this Justice card is that it is a police officer with a blindfold covering their eyes, like they are still not being noticed by law enforcement, I think. This may have been a close encounter where they felt like they should have been able to been arrested, but actually they weren't, because whoever it was that they encountered was not paying attention. But we are feeling very unhappy, though. Interestingly enough, this card also has this kid in the background, which I feel is the same kid as the son. So it being in reverse, I feel like their happiness has taken a nosedive and it's at an all-time low. But we're also not really doing anything to change things, because this card, while it's called luxury, it is the Four of Cups. And Four of Cups is normally like being spoiled for choice. And this card in particular gives me the vibe that it's kind of like laziness, decadence, just unmotivated, slacking. They have everything that they want, but they don't really want any of it because it's not going to satisfy them in any way, which is interesting because this card over here is called satiety. I think that's how you pronounce it. And then we have the Lover's card, which is upright. I'm thinking that this may be just a remembering thing, like what they used to have, or possibly also a connection mentally with the people that they used to care about. Like he may be losing it at this point is what I'm trying to say. Like he may be so far off that he's starting to imagine that there's actually people there with him that used to care for him, and they're okay with it somehow, because the Lovers, you can see the twisted cards, the twisted candles, I mean, people tend to sign up for a certain mindset with that card. They may be thinking back about things as they used to be. So how does it end? Are we actually going to find him? Oh, we got the what is this, King of Cups, I believe. Yeah, King of Cups in reverse, and the back end. All right, so we're feeling very bad for ourselves. Also ignoring anybody else because we are looking the other way. We have a dolphin in the foreground who also does not appear to be very active, a very passive dolphin right there. Possibly also giving up. Dolphins can't actually stop themselves from breathing, so in that sense they can't actually end their own life in that way. So maybe they're considering choosing that option once they have this revelation. I'm guessing that there is nothing else there for them that they could possibly want, and remembering things as they were in the past, they may be considering checking out on their own accord. All right, last card, and of course it's on the floor. So this is the wheel, but if you look at the wheel on the other side, we see the Magician, which is interesting. So normally you would see this side with just things turning, changing. And on the other end we have the Magician, so I'm guessing he's taking the fate in his own hands. At least he would like to, but I don't think he's actually doing that. It did initially when I saw it flip up this way, but it landed like this. So ultimately they may have thought that they were making the decision for themselves, but actually fate intervened and did it for him. And I'm looking at this snake-headed person, so maybe they actually got bitten by something or encountered some type of wild animal that took the justice in their hands or claws, if you know what I mean. Maybe we can take a look at one or two more cards, but I'm thinking that we're looking at the end of the story. Let's see if there's anything else we can grab real quick. Okay, strength, but reversed and upside down, so they didn't have any more strength after that. And then we end here with the Ace of Cups, but it's the other side of the Ace of Cups. So almost like, if you look at the person in the background, they're kind of like looking at this statue as though it were a beautiful person, like an actual person, and that is something that they really desire. Like maybe they went out from this life feeling all the emotions that they caused themselves, and also wishing for the people that they had actually removed themselves, and just having this literal well of emotion coming up as they exit this mortal coil, which I think definitely was caused by something outside of their own control, even though they had just made the decision to do it themselves, and then that happened. So I'm thinking we're looking at a natural end to this person, and I'm guessing that they actually never left the area where the car was found, and that area is quite vast. We may never actually find anything of him. It's been, when was that car found? I think that was still the same year, 76. So that's been a very long time. And if there was anybody out there still, you wouldn't find anything possibly other than a few pieces of bone. Depending on what actually happened, if they were attacked by an animal that tends to eat things, then possibly you won't even find that. So I don't think we're ever going to find anything of his, but it looks as though he didn't make it very far from the point where his car was found. So that is what I'm seeing for William Bradford. I hope you found that interesting. In any case, make sure to leave a like and a comment. That really helps the channel along. If you want to subscribe, that's even better. I hope to see you in another video. Thanks for watching, and bye-bye for now.